Labor says Barnaby Joyce's position is becoming increasingly untenable amid fresh allegations about his behaviour. Several newspapers are reporting claims made by a political rival back in 2011 about Mr Joyce. The Deputy Prime Minister strongly denies the allegations. He spoke outside Parliament this morning.
This morning in the Telegraph and the Courier Mail, and referred to in other papers, is a story that is not the truth. The story, it's not a case that I didn't recollect it. It did not happen. This is a story that has been brought about by a person unnamed, at a venue unnamed, at a time unnamed, 7 years ago, and has been peddled by the bitterest of political enemies to me. It is not something that I'm unaware of. They've had it on social media for years. It's just in the past, I don't believe it dignified a response. But today, it's in the paper, and as such, I reserve all my legal rights as to what action I should pursue. On another issue, I would like to say to Natalie how deeply sorry I am for all the hurt this has caused. To my girls, how deeply sorry I am for all the hurt that it has caused them. To Vicky Campion, how deeply sorry I am that she has been dragged into this. I would like to also say to my supporters and people in my electorate how deeply sorry I am that this personal issue, deeply personal issue, has gone into the public arena. I am very aware of the Ministerial Code of Conduct. It is without a shadow of a doubt that Vicky Campion is my partner now. But when she worked in my office, she was not my partner. When she worked in Matt Canavan's office, she was not my partner. And Damien Drum was not a minister. I think this is vitally important in how we differentiate between the public and the private.
The Deputy Prime Minister, Barnaby Joyce, speaking there outside Parliament House just over an hour ago about a few issues there. And now with more on this, here's National Affairs correspondent Greg Jennett.
Well, without going into the specifics of them, Joe, what we can say is that at least 3 newspapers have had a stab at publishing allegations, claims that have been around in the ether politically for a number of years now. They would, if true, suggest that Barnaby Joyce had engaged in some sort of inappropriate behaviour towards a woman back in 2011, so quite some time ago. But as we just heard from the Deputy Prime Minister, he rejects all these allegations entirely, and that's why he stepped out to make that soliloquy, which we just broadcast in its entirety. At the Senate doors to Parliament House, it must be said, Joe, catching many people unawares because it hadn't really been telegraphed as to its time or location. So we were able to capture it, but it did come somewhat out of the blue. Also, Joe, the mere fact that he's doing this tells us, I think, that Barnaby Joyce has recognised there are a number of loose ends to clear up here. First of all, rebutting those publications this morning, but also some contrition being shown in a way that wasn't in his 7:30 interview last week. So that's why he went to the trouble there to go through naming his wife, Natalie, and apologising to her, mentioning his girls, mentioning Vicky Campion by name, again, in a way which wasn't addressed in the 7:30 interview last week, and also speaking to voters in his electorate. So Barnaby Joyce, quite obviously, Joe, recognising there's a job of work to do here to clean up this mess.
Greg, what's the controversy happening? What's the politics happening within the coalition as this controversy continues?
Right, so there are coalition MPs who are at least acknowledging, Joe, that this is a distraction, that it's not allowing the government the clear air that it needs to, in their words, talk about the things that matter to them, that being employment and the plan for tax cuts. Although that's being frustrated in the Parliament, they're still arguing very strongly for it, Joe. So this was the thrust of remarks made by senior ministers, Matthias Cormann, through to backbenchers today as they try to steer attention back onto the government's main agenda.
It is distracting. People don't want us to be talking about this sort of stuff. I mean, I can only imagine how distressing this must be for all involved, for Barnaby's wife and his kids, but also for that matter for his new partner and for him. So, I mean, it's a matter that's obviously personally distressing for him and for all in his family that are connected to him, but it's clearly a distraction for the government. We want to be talking about our plans to secure more jobs and higher wages. We don't want to be talking about this.
Would it be best if he stood aside?
No, look, I mean, the leadership of the National Party is a matter for the National Party, and these are not matters for me.
Matthias Cormann there speaking to Cyberline this morning on the AM program. And Greg, Barnaby Joyce is due to be acting Prime Minister next week. Will that go ahead?
Well, it appears to be, there's every indication that the government's going to try to weather this storm, Joe, but it doesn't mean the storm is over. There are those media publications out there today which is generating another wave of, disturbance, I suppose, around federal politics and around Parliament House in particular. Labor also, it's up to them whether they continue with lines of questioning in Parliament on this, Joe. They did yesterday, and they appear to be determined to stay on the trail today. That was the indication from Mark Dreyfus, the Shadow Attorney General. On arrival at Parliament House this morning, there is every indication from him that Labor has a number of questions and they're going to persist in asking them.
It goes directly to whether or not the Ministerial Code of Conduct has been complied with. That Ministerial Code of Conduct, on its face, requires that the Prime Minister approve when staffing positions are given to partners. There's been a tortuous interpretation offered by the Liberal Party of what this Code of Conduct actually means. It seems that the purpose of that tortuous explanation is to get Mr Turnbull as far away from this matter as possible.